Okay, y'all ready, Sal? Okay, video is on. Okay. I will get the audio on and we shall. Okay. Good evening. This is the December 10th, 2018 regular meeting of the Flemington Borough Council. Meeting is being held at the historic courthouse in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. All rise, please, for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is the microphone working? Okay, thank you. Please call the roll, Sally.
Mayor Greiner?
Here.
Mr. Driver?
Here.
Mr. Gorman?
Here.
Mr. Payne?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Peterson? Here. Ward? Here.
Thank you. Before we start into the agenda, I'd like to ask for a motion to add one item to the regular agenda, which is to appoint Nancy Benson, a borough resident, to a vacant position on the Shade Tree Commission. This was not in to me by the time we took the regular agenda out. I did send an email around to council about it this morning. I hope there is not an issue. Could I have a motion, please, to add this to the regular agenda?
I so move.
Second. Okay, that'd be John and Mark. Is there discussion about adding it to the agenda? Okay.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
But should I wait till it's introduced?
Either way.
Is this a new?
Well, this is just about the motion now is just to add it to the agenda.
So it's actually relevant. Is this a new vacancy that we're trying to fill?
No,
How long has it been vacant?
for a while. It's been vacant for a while, along with a number of other positions, as I explained in my email.
Well, if you want to discuss it, she's been on it
Well,
before. Yeah.
the only thing we're discussing now is whether to add it to the agenda or not. Is there any other discussion? Okay, call a roll, please, Sally, to add it to the agenda.
Ms. Driver?
No.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
No.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll begin the agenda then with the mayor's report. On Thursday, December 6th, I attended the Thursday night lights up on Main Street. It was a very nice event. The decorations were great on stores. The turnout looked good to me, but I didn't count, but it was a very nice event. There'll be 2 more of them. I encourage everyone to come on out. Yesterday, the 9th, I sat here and attended the White House Wind Symphony's concert, annual Christmas concert preceding the holiday parade, and then walked in the parade. Switching gears, on the planning board, we had a resignation, actually 2 resignations, since the last council meeting. Jeff Perrin resigned his Class 4 seat, and I am intending, in fact I am appointing Mark Hayne tonight to fill that seat, which expires in 2021. Mark has served as a Class 3 council representative to the borough, to the planning board. So Mark resigned that position, and I am appointing him instead to the Class 4 position. Now, for perspective on this, I want to note that the planning board has 9 members, 9 regular members, and 2 alternates. Of those 11 positions, the incoming administration will be appointing 6 of the 11. So this does not in any way interfere with the incoming administration's ability to make the planning board their own way. I did want to clarify that point. So as of tonight, then, I'm appointing Mark Hayne to the seat, Class 4 seat, currently held by Jeff Perrin, with term expiring December 31st, 2021. Mark, thank you for your desire to continue serving on the board. Last Thursday, the 6th, I was notified by the DEP in Trenton that there would be an announcement at 1 o'clock about 8 sites, 8 environmental sites around the state that are being designated for, being targeted for special cleanup by the state. The phrase they're using for this is environmental justice. One of those is in Flemington, and it turns out it is the Turpop Cleaner site on Rayville Avenue. So what we expect will happen here, although not too many details are forthcoming, is that the state will file a lawsuit on each of these 8 properties around the state to have them cleaned up, and we believe it's the state's intention, if the owners do not do it themselves, that the state will go in and do it and then seek reimbursement. But in any event, that is an initiative. You may or may not have read about it. If you do hear about it, and this phrase environmental justice, that is what it's about. I will note from Flemington's perspective, we have been aware of that site for some time. There has been a little bit of infiltration into the sewer system around there, but the bigger problem that we actually have is from chemicals that are leaching over from the State Department of Transportation site on Route 31 and are limiting the capacity, the amount of water we can draw from our newest and biggest well. That isn't being addressed in this environmental justice program. Anyway, that's new since the last meeting. Lastly, I would like to thank Brooke Warden and Mark Payne for their time on council and all the related committee assignments, since unless there are any emergencies between now and the end of the year, this will be their last council meeting. Each of Brooke and Mark have each served 2 3-year terms. They were on the last 3 years, obviously, and then they had 2 different terms before that. So thank you very much. There's a lot of work that goes with these council seats and some other commissions. You've done a very nice job. I've enjoyed working with you. Appreciated your guidance and input on issues as they have come up. So we will start now with council reports. Mr. Harris, would you like to start, please?
Thank you, Bill. And I'll also say thank you to Councilman Warden, Councilman Dean, and yourself, Mayor Bryan. Thank you. DPW last met on Wednesday, it was November 12th. And since our last meeting, permit for well 10 was received. There were questions regarding water availability. Those will continue to be addressed. Our redevelopment committee has not met since we've last been here. Animal control, we've received responses to requests for bids for animal control services for the borough. and look forward to introducing information back to the borough. Looking for some solutions that will utilize different shelters in the area and come up with ways to control costs for the community. As we're aware, there was a water main break on Main Street, and that disturbed commerce of our businesses on Main Street. So I've enjoyed going down Main Street and speaking with different business owners, and I have been informed that there is going to be a new Black Friday. This Black Friday will be on December 14th. So to make up for Black Friday that was missed from the water main break, our historic Main Street businesses will have the Black Friday on December 14th. Please come out and patronize them. I'm participating this past Saturday, in the 100 Harmonizers Flemington Christmas Spectacular. And thank those of you who come and enjoyed the show very much. Speaking for the Harmonizers, we enjoyed putting on the show this year very much. And then last, I want to say that I participated in the parade last night. My appreciation to all those involved in making that happen, from employees, DPW, police, volunteers, and then all the different people that come here and really make Flemington a special place, really as a county seat, to everyone come together along Main Street. As much as I enjoyed making my way down Main Street, I enjoyed even more walking back and seeing the different stores that were open and people that were opened. Of note, right next to the post office was the Stark Brothers group. I believe they're only here in our community about 5 months right now. And they were there along with many other groups and businesses that stayed open as well. So,
Thank you, Michael.
I'd like to join Councilman Harris in thanking Councilwoman Warden and Councilman Hayne and Mayor Greiner for your years of service and dedication and service to the borough. Your service is much appreciated. I received a call on Saturday evening from a resident on Maple Avenue. I'm sorry, Michael, I did not reach out to you. I knew the Harmonizer stuff was going on about a dead deer on Maple Avenue, and I'm thankful that DPW has picked it up very quickly on Sunday before the parade. Pedestrians started to walk by as they were in onto Main Street, so nobody had to experience that other than the resident and the guys at DPW picking it up. I walked in the parade last evening. It's always nice to see a great turnout. It was quite chilly, however, it's always a lot of fun. On November 16th, at the request of the borough engineer, I reached out to the governor's office to inquire what the holdup was on the state issuing the operating permit for well number 10. 10 days later, I received a call from his office at the same time that Borough Clerk Sally Gacciano sent the confirmation email that that permit was issued, and I'd like to thank the governor's office for running that interference and shaking that tree. The well will be turned on shortly after the new year. On November 20th, I attended the community dinner at Safe Harbor, and it's always wonderful to see so many community members turn out for such a great organization that we're lucky to have here in town. On November 27th, I attended a shared services seminar hosted by Governor Phil Murphy and his newly appointed shared services czars, where they're going to be charged with helping municipalities find opportunities for sharing services and hopefully saving taxpayers money over time. I'm already working with some different departments to identify areas where we could do that going into 2019. On the 30th, I attended the tree lighting, and as we all know, it's a beautiful tree, as it always is. And I enjoyed watching the menorah get lit every night throughout the 8 days of Hanukkah, which ended yesterday. Also on the 30th, I participated in a webinar hosted by the League of Municipalities about the legalization of recreational marijuana and what it will mean to different municipalities. The legalization law is not quite set, however, there's a lot of details which remain unanswered with it. I've been meeting with various departments, learning more about the nuts and bolts of our borough as I transition into the mayor's seat next year. And as we talked about earlier, I've met with the police chief and borough engineer about the scope and future of the police department. We also had a meeting about the streetscape, which will be going out to bid in early 2019. The library roof project is progressing faster than expected due to the weather cooperating. The library was closed this past Thursday, Friday, and Saturday while the old roof was ripped from the building and the tar was applied. The contractor expects to be done by the end of the month, and hopefully at that point Maple Avenue can reopen and Chorister will go back into the opposite direction that it was. Part of the project when we originally bonded it and moved forward over the summer was fireproofing coating on the paneling on the interior paneling surfaces. That part of the job has been canceled due to a recent exciting development at the library, and that money earmarked for that part of the job will not be spent. With the coating and moving of books, that it's going to be a savings of about $16,000. 2 years ago, Flemington resident Jane Kitchen passed away at age 96, and in her will left a bequest of $276,000 for the Flemington Free Public Library. That money will be received this month by the library if it has not yet been there. Her niece, lifelong Borough resident Lois Stewart, who's with us tonight, as she often is working with the library to make sure the funds are put to the use as her aunt envisioned for the library, which was one of her favorite locations in the borough. The plans right now are to update and modernize the interior of the library by replacing the paneling and old carpeting along with some other upgrades, including pot lighting and other things around and perhaps a reconfiguration of that. I'd like to thank both the Kitchen family and in particular her niece Lois Stewart, who is managing this bequest on behalf of the estate for this generous gift to our community. And if we could, as we thank her, have a moment of silence and remembrance and gratitude for Miss Kitchen and her wonderful thoughts in providing for the borough. Thank you.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Betsy. Mark?
Yes, Park and Recreation, there was no meeting scheduled for the month of December. Normally we meet the second Tuesday of the month. Next meeting will be January 8th at Borough Hall. Administration, there was no meetings held. Planning Board will meet tomorrow, December 11th at Borough Hall. Following is on the agenda. There was an informal discussion for 196 Main Street, but I believe that's been pulled from the agenda from talking to Eileen this afternoon. And there's a resolution, which is the approval of a use variance for Kent Snow Land LLC, Block 35, Lot 65, which is 19 Church Street. Another resolution, which is approval of a use variance for Lackameyer, Block 13, Lot 22, which is 76 Park Avenue. There are two HPC resolutions on the agenda, which is 28 Spring Street and 75 Pinnell Street. So those will be tomorrow, Borough Hall at 7 o'clock. On the police, I just received the statistics for October. Miles driven, 3,518. Motor vehicle summonses issued was 172. Parking summonses 11. The mobile data terminal, which is the license plate reader, there was 3 summonses issued. There were 201 warnings, 9 criminal arrests, 20 disorderly arrests. CAD incidents, which is radio and telephone communications, there was 2,068. There were 54 investigations, 48 motor vehicle accidents. On the code official, spoke to Jeff, and Jeff had a meeting with Mr. Cusk to remove a portion of the facade off of 80 to 82 Main Street. This was reported falling off at the last meeting. Jeff said the section's been removed, and underneath it is all safe at this point. Property maintenance, I received a couple calls from Councilman Harris regarding an update for 183 Main Street, which is the Susan Pendergrass residence, or 180 unit number 3, Main Street, Susan Pendergrass residence. Was complaining about brush piles on the neighbors' properties that may be housing rodents. This was originally brought up in August. Spoke with Jeff Klein a couple times on this. He went out, looked at property lines, spoke with a couple of the owners. So right now, this has been turned over to Bill Sado, property maintenance, who has a meeting scheduled for tomorrow with the property owners to discuss cleanup options. Now, what's being looked to be done is to remove any brush that's on the property, along with probably around 8 to 12 inches of compost dirt that has built up over the years. I've talked to a lot of people on this, and some people feel property maintenance should get involved, or some people say property maintenance should not get involved. That this seems to be a neighbor dispute, and that the neighbors should handle it. If the borough's going to overstep telling people that they can't have compost piles on the property or brush piles, which I understand if it's harboring rodents, I agree with that. But to have somebody come out and remove quite a bit of compost, I think this is going to take a big undertaking. I mean, you've seen it, Michael. I've seen it, and it's not something that just happened overnight. This has been going on for numerous years, probably over 10 years. There's a chain link fence that's in this area, and you can see the fence is probably up 6 to 8 inches, and the fence is bulged out on one side. So Bill's going to go talk to them tomorrow and see what options there are with this. I guess he's working right now. He's working 2 days a week, 5 hours a day to go through the open property maintenance issues that are out there. So I just wanted to see if council feels that this is to continue him down that path of having this compost removed, or just have him make sure that the branches and stuff are removed. There was talk that potential rodents in the area, another neighbor putting birdseed down feeding, which was giving a food source, and then another area for some type of housing with the brushes, branches and brush. So not sure how the borough, what we want to do with this.
Excuse me, Mark, what should be noted also is that the resident has reached out to the borough in the past, and there's documentation that she has done so. This is the first time in years that it's being addressed. So as you said, there's a brush pile that's gotten quite high. There's this, they're calling it compost, that's pushing against the fence that didn't happen. I think the issue is, and it's worth discussing beyond this, is if we are going to take property maintenance seriously, there is going to be that pushback. Why has it not been done before? And that should not allow property maintenance issues to go unaddressed.
I agree with that. I'm just saying that this particular thing is going to be a big cleanup, and if it's going to be pushing this one that's going to draw light on it, to have people clean this up or force them to clean this up, then I'm sure other people are going to come forward and say, "Hey, neighbors got this pile of stuff on the back of my property that I want cleaned up." So, but like I said, it did go to the prior maintenance officers, and I think there's 2 houses in particular. One is a rental property. The other one was owned by a judge, which is now sold. So people were, I guess, whether it was hesitant to approach because of who owned it, but right now, this is something that's been going on for, like I said, probably over 10 years. So
There's another feature also is that the borough provides a service to its residents that they will remove the leaves and the brush and the tree limbs that get brought up to the curb. So that's something that could have been done now in a situation where they're saying that this lack of maintenance is encroaching on other people. As you said, it's been verified through animal control. They pretended that there is an issue of animals that are coming and they're addressing her home because of her. Any other comments on that? Okay.
So I just want to thank everyone on council for the last 3 years. Enjoyed working with everyone. Maybe we didn't see eye to eye on stuff, but that's what keeps things going. So I just want to thank each and every one of you guys. I appreciate all the support and wish everyone well.
Thank you, Mark. John?
Okay, I'd just like to also thank, you, the mayor, Phil, for your time. we ran together years ago, and then you decided to break off and went from here. And did a good job. And Brooke and Mark, good luck to you. Thank you for your years of service. I know your sacrifices, how hard it is, and what's involved. I've been doing it for a couple of years, so I kind of know what's going on. Several of the things have been said by Michael and Betsy that normally I cover, but they covered them, so I won't overdo that. But I want you to know that we also will continue to pick up the leaves and so on until the snows really start to fly. The leaves are still coming down. I have them out in front of my own house. There are neighbors who have them in their backyards. I'm sure they're going to drag them out. Maybe part of the compost. I don't know. Hopefully not. But DPW will be meeting again this Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning here at Borough Hall. And I'd just like to wish everybody a safe, healthy, and happy holidays and Christmas. And enjoy what is coming forward. And good luck to everybody.
Thank you, John. Susan?
I wish Brooke, Mark, and Phil well, and hope they enjoy some very deserved time off. I hope you can maybe find a hobby or two and enjoy life. I know how much work you put into everything, and I thank you for all of that. The Samuel Fleming House, they had a very successful Tricky Tray fundraiser right here on November 30th. It was fabulous, full house. The money will go toward funding some of their events and some maintenance on the house as well. The Historic Preservation Committee, they have begun work on revising their historical map, and they're in the process of updating the status of properties and either expanding areas or making areas smaller. And I'd like to thank former member Linda Swingle for coming out and helping, as well as architect Chris Piquel. The next map session will be in February. The FCP, I participated in their very successful Thursday night holiday lights. I've heard from many people that they just were over the moon about it, and they do have 2 more coming up. So it's been a very successful season so far. Beautification, I'm in the process of renegotiating the flower pots, and I cut the amount in half. So we're down to 110 pots from 220 pots. And some of the pots have already been moved up to include East Main Street, because we did have some residents up there feeling very left out. The parade was fabulous, and it looked really good having all the snowflakes lit. And as you know, I always have my hands full with the snowflakes. It takes 3 sets of professionals to get them up and lit. And honestly, I'd love for them to stay up now all year long. You know, you need the installer, then you need the electrician, and then lastly, the power company came out on Saturday evening and lit the last 3. So, you know, people love them, they enjoy them, they're afraid we're going to get rid of them, and I can assure you we're not going to be doing that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Brooke?
Yes, thank you, everybody. Yeah, everybody's talked about what the FCP has done during the holiday season, so I won't go into it anymore. The Thursday Night Lights was a wonderful event. It was really nice to march with the BFFs in the holiday parade. We had 45 people show up and march with the FCP, so it's very nice to see that council also marched along with them. The Black Friday redo is going to be on December 14th, so everybody can come out and shop. Another opportunity for Black Friday. And, you know, I think one of the things that I've been the most satisfied with on my time at council is seeing the FCP grow. So it's just been a wonderful opportunity working with you. I think you have a great budget on the agenda tonight, so just happy to see your success and know the care and commitment that you put into town. So we thank you, and Bob, thank you for your leadership as well. I'd like to again congratulate Caitlin and Chris. Hope they have a really wonderful experience serving our community, and I'd like to thank everybody up here for all of your time today. And wish everyone a happy holiday.
Thank you, Brooke. Okay, we'll come into our first public comment session of the evening. Most people come to the meetings, but if you wish to have a question or comment, please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Who would like to go, if anyone? Tony Brevitt?
Tony Brevitt, 45 North Main Street. I just wanted to say one thing. I hate to see you guys, leave your third chair on Borough Council, Mayor, Brooke, Mark. But again, I would urge you, I would love to see you here on this side of the balustrade during meetings of next year. I don't like to see you anywhere else but here, participating, striving with your resolve and your commitment to keep moving Flemington forward, and so we don't really have any relapses. But I appreciate everything you guys have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony. And here I thought you'd seen enough of us. Appreciate that. Anyone else have a question or comment? Lois Stewart?
Lois Stewart, 26 Grove Street. I just wanted to express my appreciation to Betsy for recognizing my Aunt Jane's contribution to the library. Jane lived very frugally and very privately, and now there will be many people who benefit from her generosity. So I appreciate the recognition.
Thank you, Lois.
You're welcome.
I have been on the library board and friends of the library for a number of years. I love the library myself, and I'd like to thank you too. I sit in there every month at meetings, look around at the old paneling, and it's great. Thank you.
Well, Jane just loved the library, and when she could still drive, she went there very frequently. And that library, when Jane got so she could not go, they went to Jane. And Jane just, I would say, I'll pick up a book. No, because she loved when the library people came to her. And they would bring them, then they would come and pick them up at the new ones. And it was just a real bright spot in her life. And so she just loved it, and so she has shown that it was a meaningful part of her life.
Very fitting. Thank you. I saw another hand back there. Yes, sir. Michael?
Yeah, myself, I
Yes.
CEA of the Yankee Road. I just want to take a few moments to thank the residents of Flemington, Mayor and Council, Mayor Elected Council, the Flemington Police Department, Public Works, and the Flemington Red Emergency Squad. Made the extremely cold Thanksgiving morning very warm, welcoming place to about 4,000 visitors to the borough, and we had another safe, really well run service. I thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for continuing to run that event in Flemington and running it so well. We appreciate it. Lou Ryan?
Yes,
Raritan Township.
Supervisor 445 State Highway 12. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and you, Brooke, and Mark, for your years of selfless dedication to the borough and remarkably great warm relationship that I certainly have with Woolworth Township. You ever the township's gratitude, you have this township community asks thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Lou.
Good luck.
Thank you. Carl Ackenmacher?
Carl Ackenmacher on Main Street. I just want to thank Phil and Brooke and Mark for their hard work this year, moving the Courthouse Square project forward. We look forward to the completion of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Yes.
Hi, Deborah Winters, 607 Shank Drive, Flemington. I would just like to present everyone with the idea of an antique tractor show on Main Street. I know there's car shows and many other events on Main Street, and I thought it would be a great idea. And I'd love to present you with much more of the idea and any other additional development in the future.
Thank you.
That's a quick question. Would that be different than a featured car? Because our car shows currently have the featured models.
Yeah, so there are various types of tractors and models, but it could encompass all of them. It would be, I guess, the discretion of whatever we chose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice idea. Lois, you got another?
Yes, I just wanted to say that tonight I became acquainted with this button, and I think it's just wonderful. I think we should all wear Love Flemington buttons from the Flemington.
They are nice. I have one on my top coat over there.
I think it's really new.
We thank Aunt Mary for that. Sandy Scott.
Cindy Scott, Washington Street, and I still working Mark as well as a small business owner. Anytime I've ever had anything that is going to make yourself available and satisfied with putting forth the courthouse square project and on behalf of small business owners in town. And good luck.
Thank you, Sandy. I'll have more time to stop in your place here. Okay, anyone who hasn't spoken? Jack Trust?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone for their past efforts over the last couple of years, and I know that Bill and Mark and Brooke have really been strong supporters of our project, and I've really enjoyed working with all the council, and I look forward to working with the future council and congratulating Mayor-elect Driver, on your future role, and we look forward to trying to continue to make Flemington as great as it can be. I think everybody understands that we've got a lot of feedback out of our meetings. We've taken that feedback, we continue to look at it, and we continue to think that we are going to end up with a project that everybody's going to be proud of. So I just ask for patience, and I look forward to working with everybody. Good luck in your new event.
Thank you. Bob King.
Bob King, Chair, FCP.
Okay, Bob, you have the floor.
I'd like to thank Brooke, our liaison to our organization this year, and to Mayor Bill for providing such great guidance and leadership, not only to myself, but to Dan as well throughout our tenure this year. Couldn't have done it without your help. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you all, and we will have a second public comment session later in the meeting. All right, move on to the items of business then. First item is the approval of minutes. We have a motion, please, to approve minutes from the November 19th regular council meeting.
So moved.
Okay, that will be Betsy and Michael. Call the roll, please. That was Betsy and Michael. We're still here.
Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Abstain. Wasn't it?
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. And a motion, please, to approve the executive session minutes for the November 19th meeting. So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's Mark and Michael. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Peterson?
Abstain.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, moving to our consent agenda, we only have 2 items this evening, unless there's any need for special discussion. Seeing none, can we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Items 1 to 2.
Okay, second.
Second.
Somebody, Mark and John, okay. Call the roll to adopt the consent agenda, please.
Mr. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, moving to our regular agenda. First item, as we amended the agenda, is to approve the appointment of my nomination of Nancy Benson to the Shade Tree Commission with a term expiring at the end of 2019. Can we have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make a motion to appoint Nancy Benson to the vacant position of Shade Tree.
Second. All right, that's John and Mark. Is there any discussion on this?
I would just like to point out that she has been a member in the past on that and on recreation, and a very good member. She had to resign years ago due to family situations, but she's trying to come back. She's a good worker, and I think she'll do fine. She liked it. And Rob Ozimek also was the one that informed me that she would like to come back, and he approves of it.
Okay, thank you, John. I would also like to add, as I did with the planning board appointment earlier tonight, that there are a number of openings on this commission. It has not been well-staffed due to people leaving and resigning over the last year. And so there are currently 2 other regular openings, an alternate opening, and a regular seat that expires this year. So as with the planning board, this appointment does not infringe on the next year's mayor and council for being able to appoint the commission to have a majority of members as they wish. We are not intending to encroach on that. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we call a roll, please, Sally. Yes, all right, Michael.
Yes, so ultimately, when I vote on this, as it's been added to the agenda, I'm voting whether or not to include the individual, whereas before voting on whether or not to include it. So I have my reservations about including, and I appreciate your explanation at this point now that you're voting, clarifying we're voting on the individual.
Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so then Sally, call the roll to approve the nomination of Nancy Benson to the commission.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes.
Okay, thank you all for accommodating that. All right, we'll move on then to resolution number 175, awarding a renewable 5-year telecom lease to Sprint Spectrum LP. Okay, we've discussed this a bit over the last few meetings because we actually rejected the first round. We only had one bidder. This is for the expired lease that Sprint has for their cell tower on top of our water tank on Shields Avenue. First time we went out with a bid that in hindsight was, the minimum bid was too high, didn't get any takers, so we rebid it. The amount that is being bid is essentially we only had one bid. It was determined by our CFO that it is responsive to what we wanted, so we can accept it. It provides essentially for continuing where they left off, which is they will continue at the current rate, and it calls, there is one 5-year term. It can be renewed for 4 more 5-year terms, and the terms of the lease call for a 3% increase each year during it. So the amount will go up every year. I don't have it right in front of me, but it starts out at approximately $46,000 a year and goes up by $46,700 and would go up 3% a year thereafter. So can we have a motion first, a motion and a second, please, to award this renewable 5-year lease?
I'll move it.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right, that's Brooke and Mark. Is there any council discussion on that? Okay, call the roll to adopt this resolution, Sally.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to resolution 176, which is rejecting all bids for the Rayville Avenue Sewer Improvement Project. This is for the bid was for replacing a short section of sewer line that has high infiltration and inflow over there with the bed. And the bids came in quite a bit higher than we estimated. I believe the estimate, what we budgeted anyway, was $150,000. And we have Rob Martucci here, so they were all 200 and up, were they not?
That's correct.
Okay, and you have to have money, you have to have enough money to award, which we don't, so we need to reject these so we can decide either change the scope or rebid it. So that said, can we have a motion to adopt this resolution to reject the 3 bids that we got?
So moved.
Okay, it's Michael and John. Any further discussion? Okay, call the roll and to adopt the resolution, please.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes.
Thank you. Next is resolution 177, authorizing tax abatement for 41 Route 31 LLC, block 39, lot 12, which is Chimney Rock. As it's stated in the resolution, we have by ordinance a commercial tax abatement program that says Your improvements can be abated for a period of 5 years if you apply to the tax assessor and he determines that it complies with our ordinance. He has done that. Essentially, what we're doing here is we're taking the full value of the improvements to Chimney Rock Inn, prorating them to account that a very small portion of the bar section is in Raritan Township, and then the allocated part that is in Flemington, which is roughly $1.7 million as stated in the resolution. That would be subject to a five-year abatement, and then the full amount of the $1.7 million would kick in the 6th year. So we have a motion and a second to adopt, please.
So moved.
Okay, it's Mark, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Michael, second. Any council discussion? Okay, call the roll, please, to authorize this abatement.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us into Resolution 156, which is a second reading of the Flemington Borough Special Improvement District, also known as Flemington Community Partnership, their budget for the year 2019. So we are welcome back Executive Director Ann Meredith. Floor is yours.
I guess based on, sorry?
Can you use the microphone?
Oh, sure. I guess the question is, do you have any questions? I presented this budget in October, and there have been no changes since I presented it, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. There are copies of the budget on the seat over there with other materials.
Yes, it is in the meeting packet, and as you said, it has not changed from the first reading. All right, well, first we have to have a public hearing on it, so if you're not getting any immediate questions, can we have a motion to open the public hearing on this budget? So moved.
Second.
Okay, that is Michael and John. Call roll to open the public hearing.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Yes. Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, public hearing is open on the SCP's 2019 budget. If anyone has questions or comments specifically on the budget, now your chance. If I get it from you. Okay, seeing no questions from the public, then we have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, that's Mark and Michael. Call the roll to close the public hearing.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, this is open then to council discussion before we vote on it. Is there any discussion or questions for Ann or Bob King about this budget before we vote? Okay, seeing none then, Sally, please call the roll to adopt the
We need a motion to adopt.
Don't need a motion.
Yes, we need a motion. I'm sorry, thank you, Barry. Okay, we need a motion to adopt the budget.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's Mark and Brooke. Okay, we already had what there is of a council discussion. So please call the roll to adopt the budget.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, congratulations, SCP, on your budget. And
We really appreciate your support.
Good luck.
And everybody's support and trust in us. Thanks so much.
thank you. Okay, next item, ordinance 2018-22, second reading, authorizing execution of an agreement for the sale of borough property to Flemington Center Urban Renewal LLC in conjunction with a redevelopment plan. Okay, I would like to, since we're opening this up, everyone has been here for the previous meetings. What we have here is within the courthouse square redevelopment area, we have 5 properties that are owned by the borough. They are 9100 Main, which includes a small condo, so it's actually 2 properties, and then 3 parking lots that run down Forester Street from Main Street to Spring Street. We have a negotiated amount from the developer of $1.1 million for these properties. That is to put this in perspective, that is an 11% premium over what you would call the fair market value of the properties. And I'll tell you how we get to that, just so I could report that. I went back over the last 5 years, beginning with 2014, and I looked up the assessed value of each property straight out of the tax books, and then applied what the state calls the equalization ratio. That's the number they use to convert a municipality's assessed valuation to fair market value, because not all towns assess on a regular basis like we do. And the trend on these properties then has been coming down. The fair market value on this collection of properties has been dropping from $1,174,000 in 2014 down to $992,000 in 2018. So when you look at the proposed sale price of $1.1 million, that's the 11% premium to which I refer. We have an even better benchmark, which is that we had an appraisal on the property done back in 2012, and the collective value of those properties was determined to be $850,000. So that is where we get the 29% premium over the assessed value. Now you might say that was a long time ago, but if you look at the total commercial valuations in the borough, you will see that out of $225 million, this year's commercial total valuation is within $10,000 of 5 years ago. So the property is essentially unchanged. The total value of commercial property is essentially unchanged. So that is why I think it's reasonable to look at that appraisal. So at any rate, that is the backbone, is of course the price, which in my opinion is fair. Now closing will not occur until we vacate the building or until December 1st, 2019. In the meantime, we stay with the police department and DIY stays as it is now. And the developer will have access to the site as needed, which is the subject of another vote after this one, to conduct archaeological studies as required by SHPO. Those are the main terms of the agreement. So we heard some additional information that I'm sure will factor into the discussion at our work session tonight. So with that quick recap, can we have a motion to open the public hearing on this ordinance?
So moved.
Okay, second?
For this discussion, sure.
Okay, that's Brooke and Michael to open the public hearing. Please call roll on that, Sally.
Ms. Diver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, public hearing is open on this. If anyone has questions or comments about this particular ordinance, please feel free. Okay, well, Stuart.
Lois Stewart, I'm wondering why, while I'm sure you recognize that this would be an issue of some interest to a lot of people, I'm wondering why you did not get a commercial property appraiser to do an updated appraisal of the property.
Well, as I said, the property hasn't changed, and the values of the properties in the area haven't changed much since then, and that's the main reason why.
think it would have been in your best interest to have done
Joey Novick?
Joe Copic, 11 East Main Street. But how do you know that they haven't changed if you've not done an appraisal? I mean, what is the basis of the opinion that property values have not changed?
Well, the property hasn't changed itself. There have been no significant additions or subtractions to the buildings themselves. And the general environment in the area hasn't changed either, nor have the total commercial valuations changed.
But that's my question. In what manner do you come to the information that the values have not changed of the property? The question is not reflective of any changes to the property. The question is, in what manner do you come by the information that the value of the property in its totality has not changed? I mean, I would imagine if one did an appraisal and you came by that information in its actuality, if you made that statement, I can understand that. But not having that information at your fingertips, just asserting the opinion that nothing has changed, how do you know that? In what manner do you come by that?
You could go get another appraisal. Yes, you could. In my opinion, you don't need to, but you could. That's one of the things that council will consider. But you have to keep in mind that this whole thing, this whole project, including this, is a result of a negotiation. So this is a price that we roughly kind of settled on this general price a while ago, early on, just so we had a rough, a pretty good idea what we were looking at. And if you want to, here's how I would look at it to answer your question more directly. You could go get another appraisal. With the information that we do have, which is $850,000 and no significant changes, in my opinion, if you get another appraisal, you're going to come in a lot lower than 1.1 million. So now what's your basis to negotiate a price?
Well, again, you're basing the assertion that you're going to come out lower on nothing other than your opinion. I mean, I could have.
Right, it's a calculated, right,
Right,
it's a calculated
I that it's less or it's more. The question isn't whether there's been changes to the building. The question isn't anything else other than a reasonable appraisal. And for it to be negotiated, one would have to know what the value of the building is in its actuality in the current market, not some sort of assessment sort of based on one's own opinion.
Well, what I'm offering is simply my own reasoning for why I think it's fair. It's up to council to decide whether they agree, whether they think it's fair or not. As I said, you could get another appraisal, but then you might have to live with it. And I'll bet you it would be less than 1.1 mil. But that's just me.
I would be betting on that with regard to the tax service money. I would like to see how much it actually is.
Okay. Tony Previtt.
Tony Previtt, 45 North Main Street. Mayor, I agree with your prudence in regards to the price. We're looking at 3 parking lots, which changed. The markings got a little bit more faded. And the other 2 properties have been here for as long as I've been here. And like I say, you're in the ballpark. And to spend any other money, I think, push comes to shove, just a waste of our dollars. Just keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Ackermacher?
Yeah, I'd like to point out that although the appraisal could be a guideline, it's what a willing seller and a known buyer will agree on. And that appears to be the $1.1 million that we're working.
Thank you. Steve Tuccio?
I would say that in your opinion, Mayor, that 1.1 is a fair price. And another point, how do we really know that? Unless you have qualifications as a real estate appraiser, I think, that it's your opinion in a certain way with expected. However, the same source that told us a few weeks ago that EDR Friday was definitely not closing. So,
No, I said they were not closing at the time that the rumor was going around that they were. I didn't say they would never close.
so you say that you negotiated up to 1.1 million. Who, first of all, who is the we? And let's know. Second of all, and more importantly, what number did you start at? 2 million? 1.5? Was it 1.2?
We followed this as property acquisitions were going forward because, in my opinion, what I looked for was, A, is it a fair price? And B, are we getting what I would say is a fair price versus the assessed value compared to what other properties would be bought versus their assessed value. Those were the two things that I was primarily concerned with. I wasn't alone on it. I said that this had been roughly agreed to some time ago, and the development committee back then was council members Brian Swingle and Brooke Porter.
And so what number did you start at?
Well, the important number is what we wound up with, Steve, and it's 1.1 mil.
So, not going to disclose that starting number? You said that based on your representation, it was in negotiation. So what did you think?
As I said, we followed the progress of the property acquisitions, and as they were being firmed up, I was keeping, I was keeping my eye on what other sellers were getting versus what we're getting, just to make sure that I think that we're getting a fair deal.
So you're based on your.
It's on my recommendation, yes. We'll vote on it, but it's on my recommendation, yes. Joanna Lockwood?
I have two questions. Number one, I agree with John and Steve. You don't have the expertise, you don't have to go to places or real estate license to come up with a fair assessment of what you perceive to be the appraised value, number one. And number two, in the past 3 elections, people who regularly supported the Jack Hutch plan have been voted out. And my question is, why would you be pushing this through and not allowing the residents to be waiting to have people who they have elected in the past 3 elections to vote on this sale?
The natural flow of events on this is that once the planning board approved the application, which they just did, the next logical step is doing the property acquisitions. To say that conversely, as redevelopment attorney Rob Eckelman has stated a few times, it is very common that developers wait until they get their approvals before they wrap up the acquisition of the properties. So since that approval was just granted by the planning board, this is the next logical step, and it's been on the table for some time. If you recall, this was the subject of a very lengthy approval process by the State Historic Preservation over a year ago. So it's been no secret ever that we've intended to sell these buildings, and now's the time.
And why is not tabling it until the council people are on board, since they have been, the people have spoken. They have, in the past 3 elections, have eliminated the people who were in favor of that. Yet now, when you can wait and let them do what the people have elected them to do, you're trying to push it through. Quite frankly, I think it should be able to do the people that are elected, number one. And number two, I think you should get a fair appraisal from someone who is licensed to do so. Apparently they're not.
Okay, thank Thank you for your opinion.
Excuse me, I'd like to respond also. If Joanne, you did state that an option was tabled. And I had asked my colleagues to consider tabling this originally. So we have three choices. It's always been cast as you're for it or you're against it. And I want us to table this so that we can address different concerns, which I prefer not to air in public. But we should make this very easy to support in the manner in which we proceeded. And we, I mean this collective body here, has made it difficult to support. A number of words have been said that I have to see clarification on. We've spoken to negotiations, and we've just now confirmed that those negotiations took place well over a year ago. Since that time, we have a developer with a site approximately the same size who's met with DPW, moving forward with permits. They're proceeding with their project. And the only reason why I mention that is it's because that does mean that conditions here in Flemington have changed. We have others who are investing money in the borough. And I hesitate to say that because I don't want to focus on the selling price. The selling price is only one feature of this contract. I take issue with the terms of this contract. Again, I would prefer not to discuss them here in public. However, as a member of the redevelopment committee, I've not seen this contract any sooner than any other members of this council. So this was, Mr. Mayor, I don't know who else had it, but really, I'd like to continue with the positive sentiment that we've had all through this meeting until now. And what am I asking for? And I'm stating this now, speaking during public comment time. I really do want the public to speak to, but there's another option. It's not stopping this, but it's tabling it, as Ms. Malacqua said, so that we can address other concerns. And unfortunately, members of council did not see this contract in advance so we could speak to those concerns. Rather, it was put forward so that we're now ultimately to vote for it or against it. And there needs to be a third option. Now, another term I want to speak to here is the State Historic Preservation Office. This has gone through the State Historic Preservation Office. And I've got a question. Since we're talking about this, a contract for sale of this property, the State Historic Preservation Office can review the sale of the property, but I don't believe that they're looking at the price. And again, I say there's so many other concerns other than the price, and we can go through the terms. See, that's a problem. We don't look at the details, or we say we will address the details later. Then we say that we're going to address this through the natural flow. And it was very hard for me to sit here when the terms natural flow and planning board were uttered in the same sentence. When you had a marathon in October, that's not natural flow. That was 3 months of meetings in 1 month. And then we're told it's taken 8 years. It hasn't taken 8 years. This project hasn't existed for 8 years. But that's not natural flow. Natural flow would have been if the council could see this contract in advance, speak to its concerns. Perhaps we would not all agree, but certainly we'd make it easier for people to agree.
Okay, we are in public comments, and then we will follow that with the council discussion. So are there other public comments from anyone who has not spoken yet? Okay, Tony Previn, then, please go.
Tony Trevor, 45 North Main Street. Michael, you know, why is it so damn hard to get Flemington's past the future? I just don't get this. You know, I understand, you know, micromanaging this. You know, fair and reasonable value is fair and reasonable value. We've got struggling business people here, all right? You want to go out and get an extra appraisal, go spend your money. Spend your personal money if you think it's going to matter that much. It's not, okay? Those pieces of property there are lingered. And again, you know, the original sale, this and that, I've been here through all that. But again, why is it so damn hard, like, to go from Flemington's past to a future? In sort of a reasonably, you know, quick way. I mean, this hotel's been coming apart for 15 years, okay? Let's move it, okay? Let's get beyond, because Joanne, half of what you said was political bickering. It was about politics of the past. Let's forget that. Oh, yes, it was. Let's forget that. Let's forget that and move forward, okay? We can micromanage this thing. You know, we're moving forward here. Let's keep it moving forward. Thank you.
Tony, to respect what you just said, So you're talking about micromanaging this. I want to apologize for doing my due diligence in protecting the community, looking at a contract and taking issue with terms, which we've never had an opportunity to discuss. This is not the time to discuss it. And then for your turn, and compare it to a hotel.
Again, I've heard every.
That's the red herring.
Okay. Okay, we appreciate your comments and Michael's comments. Joey Novak.
Yeah, let me, again, just in response to what Tony said, the issue isn't the project itself. The issue is the due diligence that should be required of the highest order when the borough buys or sells property. I was on council when the council bought the property, and we did, John, remember, we did a very updated appraisal of the property that we were purchasing, and that was a reasonable, improved, smart thing to do. On the way out, on the way in, should be done the same way. I respect your opinion with regard to the value of the property, which is fine. There's 7 people up there, you have 7 different opinions on the value of the property, but I don't think that should impact your negotiations. And I do not know that these negotiations took place a year ago. I think that just makes it more important to do a more updated appraisal rather than less.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public? Yes, Brian? Is it Brian Swingle?
Brian Swingle, 55 Broad Street. So, just for my first thoughts on this are that when you look at property values in the past, the borough, the trajectory of commercial property values, I think the view you have people right now is
Can you just stand up, please?
Sure. I served on council previously without getting the numbers and stuff, is obviously not all over the public, but this number is good. That's about as good as you're going to get. And frankly, if you don't take this number, the building's going to sit to rot. So I think your option now is to move forward, that should move forward. To speak to the process question I was reading before about why not table this, right? Because the reason why the new incoming members don't take office the day after the elections, because the framers wanted the ability of outgoing representatives to be able to finish their business, right? So you have a certain amount of time to coordinate post the elections so you can finish up your business, and then the new members come in and take over. Listen, we've all, even myself, have come on to council. My predecessor was finishing her business before I came on for the 6 years that I was on, and so yes, so just getting age, at the end that which hadn't or which were different, but that's just not the way it works. So you're afforded the opportunity to finish your business, you should finish your business, and then you guys can take over and do what you got to do.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the public? Marcia Carroll.
Marcia Carroll, 61 Elmwood Avenue. First of all, a few months ago, Mayor, you were asked by a member of this audience what the sales price was going to be, and you said that it hadn't been decided, it was still under negotiation, and now tonight you're saying that it was already decided about a year ago.
Roughly.
Well, that's not what you said a few months ago. So that's kind of disconcerting because it kind of follows the whole trend of this project, which is a lot of unsaid things that were going on, a lot of vagaries, a lot of secrets, a lot of secret meetings, a lot of undisclosed public things. And one of the questions that's been asked for almost 3 years is, where are the police going? Where is the contents of this building going, and how much is it going to cost? And you talk about the natural flow, and the real natural flow before selling a building is to know where you're moving. You wouldn't sell your house and not know where you're going. This is really, really irresponsible.
If you had a year to find a place, yes, people do it all the time.
If you have $1.1 million in your hand, then you gotta find a place for $1.1 million. And if you need to have it handicapped outfitted, you need to have special security outfitted, you know what all those prices are before you do anything, because you may not be able to afford to move without costing the public a lot more money. It's not your money. It's mine and his and hers. It's not yours. And this is fiscally irresponsible.
Thank you. You had your hand up, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
However, to Mr. Harris's point, the price is not the only issue. Terms are completely mysterious to, I think, everybody except a handful of people. That would be your own envisioned views, Mayor. I'm sure Mr. Cuss knows what the terms are. I'm sure he knows them in excruciating detail. And I'm interested in knowing what the downside risk and what the terms of non-performance should Mr. Cuss not do what he says he's going to do. Now, he has a track record of not being completely forthright with the truth.
Tony, Steve, no, that's not a fair statement.
Well, it is a fair statement. But that notwithstanding, I'm interested in knowing what the risks to the taxpayers of Flemington are should Mr. Cuss not perform.
Well, this hearing is just about the contract to sell the building. This is not about the general project. So the only performance is that he writes us a check for 1.1 million.
Right, and what if he doesn't do that?
Okay, then we'll try to sell it again. Steve, that could happen to anybody in any real estate transaction.
I understand.
Right.
There's usually some penalty if you don't perform. Maybe our esteemed counsel can describe penalties for non-performance on a contract.
Full breach of contract, and then you end up in a lawsuit in terms of
Right,
damages.
well, so what are the terms of, what's the downside to?
It would depend probably on what kind of costs happened in the meantime, where you can't answer a question like that ahead of time.
Are those terms specified in the contract sale?
They're typically not included in the contract sale with the.
Non-performance?
Excuse me, I'm answering your question.
Yeah.
It's typically not included in the contract sale for sale of real estate. You know, what the damages are going to be if there's a breach. It may very well be that it's $1.1 million. And very often it is, but there are other issues that come into play in terms of mitigation of damages, et cetera. And I'm not going to give legal advice beyond that with regard to a breach of contract, because I've handled many of those.
Mr. Goodman, would it be appropriate to advise counsel before we vote which section of this contract would afford us with protections? Because what I see here is that the deposit to be paid on the effective date, which I assume is when the contract is signed, is $10,000. $10,000 on a $1.1 million purchase. When I purchased my home, oh, I understand, that's why I'm asking for direction. When I purchased my home, I put down 20%, which I think is the norm. So we have $10,000 on a $1.1 million property, which the redevelopment area, redevelopment agreement is signed March 13th of 2017, gave exclusive rights to anyone. So we're handcuffed to that. We have $10,000. Which section of this agreement that we should vote on would speak to protections for the borough?
The entire contract does. And if you want to go into executive session to discuss that, we're glad to.
Would it require executive session?
Because the bottom line is that's why you have a contract. And if there's a breach of the contract and there are other issues that come into play, you would have a valid lawsuit if there's a breach of the contract. It's not as if there's one provision in any contract. I don't care whether you're selling a home, selling commercial property. It's not as if one provision specifies, what the damages are going to be. And in fact, courts really look askance at, any liquidated damage provision in a contract in these types of situations, and rarely will enforce them.
But if a contract were to include an option to buy, would it be unheard of to see 10% down with an option to buy, and then that 10% would go to the seller, whether the purchase was made or not, at the end of a certain period?
The answer is that, I just said, that would be liquidated damages. in terms of forfeiting the.
I'm not talking about damages, I'm just saying if there was instead an option to buy, someone was to
Well,
sign a
this is not an
contract.
option to buy.
It certainly isn't, it's certain, and that's a very good point.
It's a purchase contract, it's not an option to purchase.
So it's unfortunate, like, either we can go to executive session, we can discuss this, and maybe that's what we need to do, but I'm gonna give an example right here. Here's
We are
section
still in
15.
public comments.
But the public needs to be informed. Because all we're talking about right now is $1.1 million, because that's the only thing the public is aware of.
They'll hear our discussion.
So, and will they be able to comment again afterwards?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Phil, will they be able to comment again after during our discussion? Well, then I think it's relevant that we have certain discussion now. So when I look at paragraph 15, I'll make sure I'm referring to this correctly on page 5. There's a statement: seller and buyer shall cooperate in the relocation of the police department prior to December 1st, 2019. And to me, that makes sense because we're looking at the contract being executed on 12/1/2019 or sooner, where we move our police department.
Got it, contract.
Sure, let me give you a chance to catch up.
Where are you reading from?
Page 5, I believe it says section 15. It's actually the second paragraph for section 15.
Right now, it.
It's the last line. Speaking to seller and buyer shall cooperate in the relocation of the police department prior to December 1st, 2019. If I'm a member of the public and I'm reading that, I would say that sounds good. But what does it mean?
Well, it deals with good faith in terms of a contract like this. You know, I think really, this type of advice with Mr. Cuss sitting here, it's not, I'm not trying to hide it from the public, but.
I didn't create the situation, though. This was brought to the last council meeting. And now we have to discuss this.
Okay?
So I would ask my colleagues to give
What I'm advising is, if you want to give legal advice as to what these terms mean and how a court, in my opinion, would interpret them, I think it should go into executive session. Because I really don't want to be giving legal advice with Mr. Cuss sitting here, and that legal advice may come back to point.
Then I think what we need to do is consider closing discussion now, moving for executive session, so we can come out informed by that executive session, so that the public will have the benefit of the council's information, then the public can ask informed questions. Because otherwise, we're left with just talking about $1.1 million. And I'll concede that.
We would not be sharing legal advice with the public after an executive session. It's legal advice. So we will continue with the public hearing to its conclusion. Then council can discuss this. And if in that discussion it appears we want executive session, then we'll do so. Okay. So let's continue with the public hearing. Does anyone else have questions or comments about this? Okay, Joanne Lockwood, Raritan Township.
Joanne Walker, it just seems to me that there's so many unanswered questions as brought up by Michael Harris. And I don't think that the executive session would adequately answer all the questions that may be still obviously not answered for the other people. So why don't we just table it until next year?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Tony Grevitt.
Tony Brevitt, 45 again, this is a perfect example of filibustering, you know, for transparency's sake and all this. I don't want to get into all the legal terms of this for sale document. I, you know, have good faith in our representatives, in our attorney, Mr. Beckelman, and all the process that's gone on in the past 6 months. I don't need any more transparency for the sake of transparency. Let's move on. That's all this is. Meeting after meeting, okay? Yes, you're there for us, Michael. Everybody's here for us. Let's move this, okay?
Are there any other public questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to close the public. Steve Tuccio?
Follow-up question, please?
Sure.
With respect to conformance, Mr. Harris just read us the date, December 19th, 2000.
December 1st, 2019.
December 1st, 2019. Okay. Suppose sake of argument, that if we're gonna air this out and it's legal, right? Suppose that the borough was not able to perform, as in, we couldn't find a place to put the police station in that and build it and comply and do all the things that we need to do, these and other things, as Jack Kennedy said, because they are hard. And let's say for the sake of argument that, you know, what's needed here is eminent domain and put the police department where Steve's is and build this whole complex in front of Brett's house. And, but let's say we can't do that. What's our exposure? What's the cost? How can we do that? What's the cost?
I think as you said, Barry, you can't really, it would depend on how circumstances played out.
That's exactly right.
You know,
There's good faith that gets read into every contract in that regard, and I'll leave it at that.
Is there any final yes provision in that contract? I mean, when push comes to shove,
Barry's saying no.
no. And it sounds like.
Well, you know, there is a provision that requires the redeveloper to close, I think, by the end of next year. But, you know, that is in there.
Right.
But of course, if necessary, if the parties agree, that could always be extended if, you know, circumstances dictate.
Okay. Are there any other public questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to close public hearing, please?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, call the roll, please, Sally, to close the public hearing.
Mr. Driver?
I have a question. Does closing a public hearing require a supermajority?
No.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm voting yes to close the hearing.
Yeah, close public hearing is a vote.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
No, because the public will not have a chance to ask questions afterwards.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Ward? Yes.
Okay, we are now at the point of council discussion before we vote on it, and as previously mentioned, if there's a sense that we need legal advice before we vote, we can get it, but in the meantime, is there any council discussion on it?
So this project has been stirring in one form or another for 2 years. There's been plenty of time for the governing body to start the ball rolling as to where the police department will go. It's simply, it's almost misfeasance to not have done that and to sign this contract with a 1-year closing date without any contingency for the police department and nebulously worded that accommodation will cooperate in the relocation, whatever that means. Now, what if the next council refuses to bond the money? Where to move the police department? Where do we move them? Where do they go? Phil, when the night that the financial agreement was voted on, I asked very specifically, and I was looking at it going, where's the accommodation for the police department? How are we going to move the police department? How are we going to pay for that? And you assured me that night, oh, it'll be in the sales contract. It'll be in the sales contract. Well, it's not in the sales contract. Yeah. Municipalities all over New Jersey make accommodation with developers to pay for these things when they need a building. If they want development and they need that building, the developer it should be written into the sales contract that the developer will contribute $5 million, $6 million, $8 million, however millions it will take to find a new home for a police department, as well as hold off on any closing until they have a place to move into. It's simply irresponsible to move forward without a home for our police department and have no idea what it's even going to cost at this point. We have a rough estimate, but we don't know for sure what it will cost. Or even where it can go. I mean, we have this one site that you know, the engineer, myself, and the police chief looked at. I know you mentioned, or Councilman Hain mentioned, Victorian Square for a number of reasons. The architect says even a retrofit's going to cost in the millions of dollars, well above $1.1 million. We have no way to pay for this to move forward. We have no way to pay for it.
Any other discussion?
I'm gonna say it's not even October when we were talking about the financial agreement at that time. We were talking about this back when we spoke to the budget, and that puts us back to March. And at that time, we were told, well, we're not going to build it in this year, so it doesn't need to be in the budget. However, I thank our CFO, Bill Hance, for directing us that we can put future expenditures on the budget so that the council can look to its budget, not just as a means to get from one year to another, but to have targets for the coming years. This is very definitely something that we're going to need to pay for. Conservative numbers are putting this at over $3 million. So again, I'm not making an issue of the 1.1 million. I'm making an issue of where does the rest come from. And I'm not even saying that that needs to come from the developer. I'm asking for what I spoke to a month ago. We get an opportunity to speak to this in the meantime, and that is there needs to be a negotiation that has the freeholders at the table as well. When I went as a member of the redevelopment committee to the medical center, and we met with members of the freeholders, they said they want to be at the table. They will help close this deal. They will help make this happen. See, we've got a developer with resources and vision, but also an influence. Far more influence than we have with the freeholders. It's my understanding we can't even use the courthouse come January.
Okay, so some of the things that have been said here about why haven't we zeroed in or nailed down a home for the police before we do this. I have done some looking around at some places, done some site visits, talked to some landowners. It's not, it would be a misstatement to say that nothing has been done. In my opinion, you can't, well, it's not an opinion, I just think you don't close, you don't buy properties and close on properties that are for sale now when you haven't even gotten a planning board approval for the site plan. And that was a situation that we have been in for the whole project up until now. We didn't know any more than the developer knew whether the site plan was going to be approved or not. Then comes the property acquisition after that, and you can't really go out, or you shouldn't, in my opinion. You don't go out and buy a new property when you haven't sold the old one. But that is not to say that no properties were looked at or evaluated or that serious thought wasn't given to it. In my view, we allowed for a year from now because I think that that is enough time to get this job done and that the 1.1 million is enough money to cover most, if not all, of the costs. The police department has moved 5 other times in its history, starting being in the home of Bart Evans and then moving out, and it's grown every time. And in every case, they have found an existing building and they have moved into it with relatively little fanfare. If the new council's opinion is that you should buy a new property, build a new building, that's fine, that's your call when you are here. But as I have said off to at least one person up here before, I am not asking anyone to do anything that I wasn't planning to do myself had I been going forward as the mayor next year. This contract would look exactly the same if I was going to be the mayor as it looks with this driver coming in as the mayor. So I had expected these were reasonable terms. I was planning to do it, and now someone else gets to do it. I know it's a little daunting when you're stepping in and you have to go do this, and now your actions are going to be scrutinized and reviewed. It is a little daunting, and I get it. But it isn't anything I wasn't planning to do. The terms aren't any different than I was planning to accept and live with. So that's my answer to the timing of it. I just didn't think that we were there at the point where we could be buying another property and a year, I think, is enough. I granted it's probably not enough to go buy a whole new lot and design and build a whole new building, but that wasn't what I was planning to do either.
How many police department designers and architects did you talk to when you looked at other properties, Bill?
I
mean, did
reviewed
you
it
talk to any of
with
them?
the chief, who gave me the list of the requirements.
Because I actually met, and it was very specific that, you know, I met informally with an architect who does police department designs. And he was quite clear that even if it's an existing building retrofit, it is still going to be millions of dollars. Millions. And if you were looking at other buildings previously, it would have been very easy for you, just like I did, to ask an architect to come along and say, give us a study, spend the $5,000 or $6,000 for a study, so that we know before signing this contract, the sales contract, exactly what we're getting into, whether it's an existing building or whether it's new construction. You could have had that done, and that was not done.
Okay. Yeah, other comments?
Yeah. Okay, going back 25 years ago or so, we could have bought the Catholic Church for $225,000 on Park Avenue. 2 new members came on council. Because they were new, they didn't want to spend the money. They didn't want to do this and do that. I said, you take out the grass on the sides, put in a parking lot, you got the basement, you can put the police in, you got the first room, you got the whole church, you turn it into a room like this where you have your meetings and everything else. Well, they hem and hawed, and no, let's back and forth we went, back and forth. So guess what? Nothing happened. So here we are, 20-some years later, and now, you know, we got this opportunity to sell a property for more than it's worth. And to take the money from that property and put it into, you know, I looked at right across the road. You can buy some for $800,000, put $300,000 in. Don't tell me you can't bring it up to scale to what has to be done now. And I don't believe for a second that that can't be done. And even the police chief knows that. He knows what, you know, Mary Melfi moved him into the building he's now in when they bought that down there. The money's been recouped from what we paid for. And all I've heard for the last 8 to 10 years is let's turn that building back and get rent back from it. Now we got the opportunity, and all I see is a stalling position going on here. This is nothing but a big, Tony mentioned it, what's going on? It's a boondoggle here. Nothing's happening. And you want to stall for another 10 years? You know what? My house is worth more 10 years ago than it is today. And it's not going up in value right now. And that building has not had one thing done to it to improve its value. That's for sale. So you're telling me it's worth more than what you're being offered? You know, there has to be some reasoning here and some realistic figures. People have to come to grips with real life and just move on with this project. Thank you.
John, respectfully though, if you're going to say that an amount of time something's taken in the past because you couldn't build a consensus is the reason to shoot first and aim later now, that doesn't make sense. And if we're going to say there's an $800,000 property out there that for $300,000, no problem, we could get this done, then that was on whomever was sponsoring this ordinance, put it onto the agenda. They should have had that ready. Instead, I'm to trust that there'll be no problem. I made my concerns known. When I came up with numbers regarding police departments, that was back in October. We brought this up in March. So I'm working on a far tighter timeline. And no one's coming here with other alternatives. And people say, well, great, we'll just grab some other building that was previously utilized for police use. I'm sorry, I want to measure this out, know it can be done. Make it easy for a majority of council to vote yes. And to put this out, again, the public comes here and they're saying, please, let's just make this happen. Let's make this happen. We have to do our homework, which is exactly what I said last time.
So in Middletown, New Jersey, this is related. In Middletown, New Jersey, it was on League of Municipalities Facebook page today. They're building an $8.5 million borough hall or city hall, I don't know what the form of government is. You know, they're building it through a private-public partnership financed by a developer who wants to build something else in town. Because the agreement came along, and when they worked the agreement, they said, sure, we'll let you build that project, but you're gonna be evicting our borough hall or our city hall, so you have to build us a new one. And we have failed to do that with this developer when we could have done that.
Well, the developer, for one thing, to say that there is nothing in there, the developer's kicking in $2 million for a well, other expenses that have been paid for, so.
It's not even permitted or even designed yet, thanks.
Yes, but it is not correct to say that the developer is not kicking in things on behalf of the town. He certainly is. One of the things that's problematic to me with the unfolding of this architect's view is it is pretty much the way that every major vote we have taken on this project has occurred. This sale has been in the offing, very much in the public view since August of last year, when we had the SHPO hearing down in Trenton. Many people in this room were actually there. There would have been no hearing in Trenton if we didn't own these buildings and weren't going to sell these buildings. So it's been on the table to do that for well over a year. And so what happens is we get to be 3 days or 4 days before a vote, and now here comes this new thing out of nowhere that says, whoa, it's going to cost you, many times what you think. And there's really no time to digest it. That has been the pattern of every major vote we take here.
You went silent on October when I gave statistics of other New Jersey municipalities, a range of them, that built police departments as well as retrofit. And the minimum number, I believe, was $3.2 million. You went silent at that time. To say that we've been silent on this, waited until a couple days ahead, that's not right. You've just, by your own admission, stated that this was brought to SHPO well over a year ago. And no one here has taken the trouble to come up with a plan so at least we can say, as I just heard John say, 800,000 plus 300,000, you've got yourself a police department. Why has no one done that? Why in October did no one come back and refute the different police departments, the different municipalities that I laid out there? I know you read it, but you had no answer because you don't answer.
What is it? Refresh my memory on what this is that you put out. Okay. Where did you put it out? Facebook?
And then published and delivered to each resident's home the issue of the police department.
You put it out in Facebook and a political mailer?
Correct.
Well, you're right, I didn't read it.
You did. I'm sure your wife did.
Maybe she did.
I'm sure she did. As Ms. Carroll pointed out, people have been asking this question for 3 years. Where will the police department go? Would it not have been ideal for bringing this contract up to say, hey, we've talked to the architects, these are the options, we can go into Victorian Square for this amount of money, we can go into a new construction for this amount of money. Instead, we're not. Instead, we're rushing through a sales agreement, just like we rushed through a planning board approval in an unprecedented 5-week marathon planning board process in order to get approvals before there's a new council and mayor seated. And frankly, I think that it stinks to high heaven. It makes me wonder what else is being hidden.
Can I just make a motion, we move to executive session so we can look at this contract and get some of our questions answered? Perhaps some of this doesn't need to be discussed.
I'll second that.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly have an executive session on it. I guess the question I would have is, should we go ahead and finish up the business, the rest of the agenda? Let me just look here. What we have is the access agreement. I'm talking about what's left on the agenda besides this. We have the access agreement allowing the developer to do archaeological work while we are still in the building. And then we have the resolution that Betsy wanted to put on to have an architect do work for $6,000. Could we go ahead and do those two items and then move to the exec session, just so we don't need to quickly? Okay, all right, let's do that then. So we will adjourn this item temporarily and then come back to it when we get to, after we finish items 6 and 7.
And just to formalize it, there should be a motion to put this off to later in the agenda, to amend the agenda.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All right, so the motion then is, I will suggest where we're putting it off to. Let's put this, I would suggest we put this off, we'll do item 6, item 7, then we will go into the executive session, all right?
That's
All right,
certainly
is that
council
for the motion?
So public comment will follow?
Yes. Okay. All right, so the motion is to put an executive session in, we'll continue with items 6 and 7, then have an executive session after item 7. And the executive session will be for legal advice on this ordinance. There was a motion and a second, I believe?
Yes.
All right, call the roll then to amend the agenda that way.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Or, yes.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on then with resolution number 178, which is authorizing signature on an access agreement to allow the courthouse square redeveloper to perform archaeological work pursuant to SHPO approval of and conditions for the sale of 9100 Main area properties. In a nutshell, when we signed the agreement with SHPO back at the beginning of last year, some of the terms and conditions related to archaeological work on the site, and that requires some digging. So this, if the developer is going to come in and do that, which he's required to do, then we have to have an access agreement, means you have proper insurance coverage, give notice, etc., that is specified in the agreement. So, do we have a motion then to, and a second on resolution 178?
So moved.
Second. Okay, that's Michael and Mark, call roll to
I
adopt.
have a question.
Yes.
What happens to this right of entry agreement should the sale not pass?
I would think it would remain in effect because the developer, presumably there would be another sale agreement at some point in the future, but that doesn't need to hold up the
Before I vote, I just want to point out that we've had problems in the past with your folks going into the DIY facility while the building is occupied. Keep in mind that building is sometimes occupied by young adults, sometimes not even 18, maybe they're 17. I implore you to please make sure, and I think you have the responsible party's contact information, to please reach out to them before you enter into the building, both for your protection and the protection of the borough. I would hate to see any issues or claims of issues arise because you're entering and there are events or people in there doing activities and things can happen.
The archaeological work that would be getting done in the parking lot areas. But your
They
point's
have to
noted.
go in.
It has to go in. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further council discussion on this one? Okay, Sally, then call the roll, please, to adopt resolution 178 on the access agreement.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, moving to our last resolution for tonight, resolution 179, authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign an agreement with SSP Architects for architectural services regarding programming and conceptual design for a new building for the Flemington Borough Police Department for a fee of up to $6,000. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay, second. All right, that's Betsy and Michael. Is there council discussion on this one?
Yeah, I have something to say about this. I think that this is something you've been talking about doing or not doing tonight. The fact is, you're a couple of weeks away from next year. It's not, we don't have anything in the budget for it. And there's going to be a new budget being developed next year, and I think that's where this should go. And start in January, and only a couple of weeks away to put that in there, that with the new council, to do this. My opinion.
I have a question too. Rob Bontucci said in the work session that in addition to this 6,000, that you need 4,000.
Yeah, for site analysis, but it's not a, it would be a separate agreement.
That would be a separate.
Yeah, I'm gonna raise.
Okay.
But still, we're looking at 10,000.
Yeah.
I think John's got a very good point. Like, even if we approve this right now, and Bill cut us a check, it's not going to happen before the end of the year. But I think it also speaks to Betsy's wanting to address the issue of the police department, and there's no delay. It's here.
Bill, can you address whether or not there's funding to move pay for this? I know I sent you an email, and I'm sorry I don't recall a response.
Yes, the money is encumbered for this.
Yeah, whether you spend it or not, you will encumber it if you vote for this.
I guess my question is right now with this, as John said, there is no budget money for it. And this seems to just lock us into building a brand new structure at 151 Main Street. If this was expanded to say, look at 151 Main Street, look at Victorian Square, look at Red Vanilla, so that you have 3 options to say, I mean, right now, this is zoning in, I'm taking all my blinders off, I'm looking at 151 Main Street.
And I'm looking at a new building.
And a new building.
We've been talking about adaptive reuse all year.
None of that was in the plan of building a whole new complex.
No, so that's a good point. I will point out again that the architect, when I asked very directly, would it be better to find a building that we can do adaptive reuse on? His reply was quite clear that no, we will not save any money. And it's fine to add in other buildings. However, if we're going to sell a building, if we're going to enter into a contract to sell tonight, the other building, that clock starts ticking immediately. And the longer we put it off, the longer we're going to have a homeless police department.
I noted in this letter from the SSP architects, they say that the borough has expressed interest in building a new structure at 150 Main. In order for this to happen, the borough plans to purchase a section of the property from a private entity after the lot is subdivided.
He was reading it. It was more just there's no plans to purchase anything at this point.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
No, there's no plans. It was more a matter of A, could this site work? You have to go in and study it, and B, if it can work, what the cost would be to build on that site. And whether or not we do it from here, it's still a study that's going to have to occur at any other location that we may want to consider putting that police department into. And I think putting it into Red Vanilla would be a horribly mistaken idea to put a police department on prime retail real estate in the middle of Main Street.
I think it's a pretty good place, personally, but as I said, it's a matter of opinion.
How much did it cost to move the police station into their Borough Hall?
Almost nothing. I asked Mary Melfi about that. She was the council person kind of driving that move. It cost just about nothing. The police actually did move.
So it wasn't close to $3 million?
It was nothing.
Okay.
And what year was this?
Approximately, what did we buy that in 2002 or 3, right, somewhere?
About
2000, yes.
And I'm sorry, and can you tell me what the Department of Justice guidelines were and Department of Corrections guidelines were at that time?
No.
Yeah.
They've gotten progressively tighter.
Yes, they have.
Every other element
Yes,
of
they have.
government
So we
oversight.
want to talk about what happened in 2001, 2002, 25 years ago. Well, that's wonderful. Have a great time. But I keep hearing move forward, move forward, move forward, not move backwards. And yet I'm hearing move backwards because this is what we did in 2002.
Okay, is there any other council discussion on this resolution? Okay, Sally, call the roll then on whether or not to approve resolution 179.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
No?
Mr. Haynes?
I'm gonna say no unless it's changed to encompass all three properties.
Mr. Harris?
If we want to build on what Mark said, Rob, can you advise us what we would expect in terms of scope of work? What type of a change would that be?
Yeah, I could ask the architect to revise the quote. It'll probably cost more money, obviously, because he's studying more, but I could ask that, that's no problem.
What you'd be looking at then would be another vote in January on a different cost.
Yeah, Mayor, if you're gonna have a discussion in the middle of a vote, you may wanna allow those who have already voted to have a chance to re-vote it. What the discussion now might change their opinion, and I don't know if it would.
Why don't you table it till January? And then that way you get the information that you need and then you don't have to worry about it.
That's what a suggestion.
Are you okay with that?
Well,
We'll go ahead with the vote if you want to.
we can vote now, and if you turn it down, we'll reintroduce it in January.
Well, that was my recommendation.
All right, so.
Well, I would like it on the record as the fact that people are not, outgoing council members want to sell a building without any accommodation for knowing where the police department's going to go, and I would like that vote to be on the record.
Okay. We're in the middle, we were in the middle of a vote here. We're not voting on an agenda, on a resolution that's different. We're voting on this resolution unless we withdraw this resolution and amend it. And I'm not hearing that. If there's any, do you wish to withdraw and change and modify this or not?
Unfortunately, Mayor, you're in the middle of a vote.
Yeah, I know we are, yeah.
So you have 3 people who've already voted, so to amend it at this point.
I know we are.
Everybody withdraw
All
their
right,
vote.
so we have 1 yay and 2 nay votes, is that right so far?
Are members willing to withdraw their votes so that there's an option here? Those who voted already. And Mark, I suggest you would because you're already offering. Okay, great. So you have 1 of 3 willing to withdraw a vote.
But what is Mark doing?
Yeah, this is really getting confusing here. We are in the middle of a vote.
My suggestion is finish up the vote. If you want to amend it, after the vote is taken or introduce something else, that's fine. But finish the vote would be my recommendation.
All right, and Sally, just recall for us what the votes are so far, please.
Votes are Betsy Driver, yes. John Gorman, no. Mark Haynes, no.
Okay, so let's do you, Michael.
Yes.
So
All right,
then
Michael
Michael,
is yes.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
No, I think the scope is too narrow.
Okay, so that's 3 yeses and 3 noes.
Do it to me on this one too, huh? Okay. All right, look, my preference, I think it would be better if the new council did this. However, where I can, I have tried to defer to them. Where I can, I won't, but where I can, I will. And so I'm willing to defer to them on this one and say, yes, we'll go ahead and adopt it.
Thank you.
All right? Okay. All right, thank you all. Tedious process. Okay. I appreciate everyone's input on it. I get both sides of it. Okay, so the next item then, as we just recently amended the agenda, is we will have an executive session for legal advice on ordinance number 2018-22. I do expect when we come out of the executive session, we will vote on this ordinance one way or another. So you're free to stick around if you'd like, but we do have to clear the room, and I don't know how long it will take. So you're welcome to wait outside either end. Thank you for your patience.